Today, where'd Heather go? This is ChillPoint.
Does that mean that last time you were like, where did Beach go?
Well, last time we had the
Beach not found.
Beach not found. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was trying to I tried to fluff up my beard to bring it in line with what the hair situation is apparently on this stream.
Yeah. I'm going to some effort. I had a wonderful shower yesterday, and really just my hair is so soft and it's so lovely. When you clean, hi, this is ChillPoint for CheckPoint Plus. I'm Beach. Yeah.
Where we're talking about hair.
When you launder your body, do you like have a situation, like a whole routine to take care of your beard as well? Like, does it require soaps and shit?
I'm stuck on the launder your body.
The other day, I picked up a chunk of hair, and I said to Heather, I'm like, I'm going to throw this in, and I turned to the toilet, and then said, I almost called that the dishwasher. So I think there's something wrong with my mind.
Things are getting desperate.
Yes.
Run out of toilet paper, dishwasher it is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I have. I usually just I don't use special beard shampoo and stuff. I just get the I will sometimes do it.
But use normal shampoo.
Yeah, I sometimes do put shampoo in it at the same time as I'm doing my hair, and I also I often use I've got some beard oil that I use sometimes that I find helps keep it a little bit more under control. I did not use it today, which is why it's more frizzy, but it also stops it from getting too itchy, which sometimes it can if it's left alone for too long.
That's fair.
But I should probably... you folks probably haven't seen it, but the biggest issue that I've run into these days is... obviously mask and beard are not super compatible. And so usually the mask ends about here. And then you get the mask beard where it's sort of goes down to here, and then you get a real you get it's like when you've been wearing headphones all day or whatever, you get that line in your head. It kind of is the same thing, but for your face. So that could be kind of annoying. But on the other hand, I don't know, maybe it should be one of those things that's your beard is all messed up because you're wearing a mask, but that's proving that you were wearing a mask. So that's something anyway.
Yeah.
I kind of like that. But anyway, welcome to ChillPoint, where we talk about video game stuff as well as hair care.
Grooming and whatnot.
Occasionally we talk about video game news. If you haven't seen the show before, we do a show called CheckPoint on loadingreadyrun.com and on YouTube/loadingreadyrun. And that's a weekly video game news show that's very tightly edited and scripted. But we often have both stories that we didn't use because either we couldn't think of anything funny about them, or they were too complicated, or there's all sorts of reasons why I wouldn't use a story. Or also sometimes there's more information about a story that doesn't make it into the episode. There's only so much background info that you can, usually when we're doing writing a story for CheckPoint, you basically want to give, because like the background info isn't the funny part, right? So you want to
Yeah,
give like the
exactly.
bare minimum of background info so that people who don't know what is going on will be able to get the joke that you're about to make.
Which is an interesting point because there is a story that I did where knowing more background info does not really undercut, but it certainly does give shine a different light on what's going on in the story, and I will talk about that when we get to that.
Okay, well, yeah, so let's talk about, so the first story that we did, which is probably it was, one of the more controversial stories, I guess,
Hmm.
is about this Ubisoft, about the Tom Clancy's Elite Squad. And this was an interesting story because just looking at the YouTube comments and stuff, there's people had there a lot of people agreed with us that Ubisoft is dumb, and some people had some other opinions on this, different ways. And what I feel like the big thing with this story is that, or the big thing with Ubisoft is that they keep doing this thing where they're trying to be like edgy or not but or like a little bit controversial, a little bit kind of like when they did with like the Division and with Far Cry and these games where like they know that they are kind of going into an area that is possibly controversial, but they're doing it on purpose and because it's an interesting area to tell a story in, because often it is, and also they can get people, it's a good way to get publicity or whatever. But then Ubisoft does this thing where they do that, but then the area that they move into turns out to be way more controversial than they were they're planning on being like slightly edgy, and then
Yeah.
circumstances change and it turns out that what they thought was going to be slightly edgy actually becomes kind of a problem.
And we wrote a joke after the fact, after we did the show, where it was like, I think the problem is that Ubisoft has some sort of crystal ball that they can see the future, but as you put it, Paul, they can only generate bad takes on the future.
Yeah,
As a consequence of being able to see the future, they can only ever generate bad takes on it.
yeah, it's the monkey's paw version of the crystal ball where it's like you can see the future but only to do bad takes.
Yeah. Super monkey's ball.
And so this the Elite Squad. So the big thing with it was that the premise of the game, the thing that the Elite Squad is fighting against, is this group. I think it's called Umbra.
Yep.
Which so they aren't. The idea is that there is this evil terrorist organization that has usurped this legitimate protest thing, or it's exploiting it, using it for its own ends, and sort of pretending, but in fact they're evil place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is kind of an interesting idea. Like that's
And it is definitely a possible idea.
certainly, yeah,
Yeah.
but it's a more interesting idea when that isn't something that is like literally currently happening in the world, or that's something that has been a lot of there's been a lot of discord or sort of people back and forth about, that there's actually sinister things going on in terms of legitimate BLM protests, and this idea that there's some dark sinister force controlling the protest movements is not something that can be dismissed as fantasy anymore, because there are people who legitimately believe this and are
Yeah.
making very dangerous decisions based on that.
they're indulging in a lot of conspiracy theory, saying that, well, clearly all this could only ever happen because people with an awful lot of money are encouraging people to act this way, and it's like there's so many reasons why that's a terrible take, and this is this case where then by saying, hey, but what if we made a video game about that idea? And what if we structured that video game around a lot of iconography that is very relevant right now? And it's like, I see how you connected all the dots. The trouble is that you drew the picture you're drawing with all of these dots is feeding into a lot of terrible conspiracy theories, and which is why, of course, we have to do this story, because it's like, wow, Ubisoft, you not only engaged in this, and then when the time come, you're like, oh shit, we can't cut our losses and run because this has been in dev for so long. You leaned into it, and that's more of the trouble, where it's like, hey, we made this thing and we hope no one's going to have a problem with it. Hey, guess what? A lot of people have a problem with this. Oh, well, we're not going to try to address or apologize for it in any way. We're going to get incredibly defensive and dig our heels in. It's like, that just makes it look even worse. And I don't know why my video has stopped, but I'm sure it will come around.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
One sec.
On my end, my video is working, though. I can confirm that.
Hey, there we
go. Hey, I'm back. Ding, 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 ding.
And actually, to address something that I also saw in the comments, in Ash1618 note saying thing that one of the images that we showed, which was an image that I made for the thing, was when Graham was talking about other uses that the raised fist is not just the BLM symbol. It's been used for revolutionary organizations. Ooh, and B just gone again.
Oh, that's weird.
Seems bad. Let's try this again. Be better.
All right.
And it's been used all throughout history by lots of different organizations. And so to illustrate that, I used a picture from the Wikipedia page for literally raised fist, which is a Wikipedia page, which had a bunch of images of the raised fist symbol used for different organizations in different contexts and stuff. And to be honest, I didn't
research each and every one of the
reason why
images.
The reason why I went to Wikipedia and used that rather than just because I wanted an image of showing that in a lot of different contexts, and I was afraid that if I just did like Google image search for upright fist, I would get I would end up with a bunch of images that were not appropriate. So I went to the Wikipedia page and grabbed the image that was on the Wikipedia page for that.
Because at least Wikipedia does have its neutral point of view thing, which we're not talking about that. Let's leave that aside. But yeah.
But apparently, some of the images there were for organizations that obviously by putting the images up there, we know in no way endorse any of those organizations. Thing. The image actually is cropped off. There's one below the one below it is like for brown coats, as in like the Firefly fans. So I mean, like, I guess the idea was that the image it was used for all sorts of different, like quite a large breadth of stuff.
Yeah.
So I apologize if that I guess that's sort of would have been better if that hadn't sort of undercut that point of the story a little bit there. So sorry about that, but it is an interesting thing where it's like if if this same premise for a game had happened at a time when that specific image of the black upraised fist wasn't so prominently being used. Obviously it's been used all throughout history in different ways. I mean, there's there's even ones with like the fist with like a gaming controller in it, right? Like there's been, uses that are both very important and also just, frivolous.
Yeah.
But if the fact that particular version of it, the black fist, is very prominently being used right now, definitely does make the connection much stronger than it would have been if, for instance, if it had just been sort of general revolutionary images. So, and I mean, what we were talking about afterwards, this is like, okay, sure, they removed that opening cutscene, but presumably I haven't played this game, but presumably the premise of the game is the same, right? Like,
Yeah.
You're still doing that stuff with the organization thing. So like, and I mean, I guess they can't really fix it at this point without completely redoing the entire game. But
Yeah. And I mean, it does even the idea of like, because it reminds me a little bit of like Wolfenstein 3D when they started selling that in Germany. Like, we're going to go way back here, by the way, because Wolfenstein 3D, right? But when they started selling that in Germany, it's like, we can't sell it here unless we change all of the Nazi Germany iconography. We have to take all of that out of the game, or we have to change it to something else, because you're not allowed to publish, even if it's like, it's clear these guys are the bad guys, and that you were blowing them up, and you were shooting them, and you were killing them, and whatever. You're killing Nazis. I think Germans can kind of get behind that idea at this point. And so, still, it's like, yes, but it's still against the law to be putting that out there, so you have to change it. So it's like, even, but then it's like, if you change all that, the underlying idea of what's going on in the game is still going to be there. People are still aware of, I see what's going on here. I can see from a lot of the, from how they're kind of styling it, that it's supposed to be about this thing. So I think that happens a lot in games where it's like, if you change the look of something, if the underlying idea is still there, like it would be in Elite Squad, where it's like, hey, so this is about a protest group that has been co-opted by a shadowy organization that's actually trying to do a lot of harm and evil. And you play, history's best, nicest super cops to come in here and forcibly lay the smackdown. It's like, if the idea is still the way that the idea is, you can't really get away from it, even from changing the iconography. So how hard would they have to change that game and change the story and change everything within it in order to be like, we're not trying to make that point, we're not trying to say things this way? And that's a thing that's way outside the level of CheckPoint to have to address, I think.
Yeah. Fundamentally, obviously, we are a silly show, so we try not to get too heavy into stuff.
Yeah, but we do want to, at least when something is an interesting political thing that's happening, it's kind of like, we do want to point this out because it is pretty shitty that this is happening, right?
And for CheckPoint, it's like, bad news is not fun to do on CheckPoint. Like studios closing or people being accused of harassment or all sorts of things like that. If you notice they don't really, those don't usually come up as stories on CheckPoint, unless for instance, like this, we did a story about it, but in this story we do mention Sergei Haskot. Anyway, Sergei Haskot. This whole thing, because it becomes funny within the context of, you really gotta push boundaries, and I want to be, I want to see you guys doing some exciting things, some different things, rather than censoring yourself. And then the guy turns out, to be a complete scumbag, who's, engaging in,
And
has been fired from the job for harassment. And it's like, maybe he was pushing the boundaries a little too much.
yeah, maybe he's not the person that you guys should be listening to, right? It turns out that, oh shit, we were listening to the wrong kind of guy.
Yeah, maybe he's not the boundary guy. Maybe he's not the one to be like, stop doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
So just him being a bad person by itself is not that interesting as a story. Him being a bad person on top of the sort of ridiculous hypocrisy of the thing, is what makes it into like a checkpoint story, or a studio closing isn't an interesting checkpoint story. It's just a sad thing that happened. A studio closing, and then the company owning the studio prominently crowing about how much money they made this year, which happens
all the time.
Yeah, that is something that we can actually, that's got a little an angle on it that we can take.
Yeah.
So
we should probably move on then.
Yeah, let's move on to Crusader Kings 3, the extremely non-controversial. I love what you do in this, and I'm sure it's going to be the source of many checkpoint stories going forward.
Like there's so I had to look up, because I was like, okay, I remember somebody telling us one of the stories that was in here. The king who received a letter of courtship from their neighboring royal and said, you should leave. Here's a poem I've written for you. It's a terrible poem because it's computer generated. It's like, leave your barren wife and be with me. And I'm like, okay. And then reading the thing, and it's at the bottom, it's like, wait, aren't you my daughter? And because it's like, a lot of the online, there are a lot of memes here where it's clearly people who play this game. Some of them are kind of have really shitty opinions. So we'll start with that. So be cautious. Oh, there's also the fact that screenshot, I think, came from Crusader Kings 2, because I didn't realize 3 was like just came out, and some of these images I was seeing are actually from Crusader Kings 2. And it changed the tone of my story to be like, wait, this has already existed as a thing. Crusader Kings and the whole series has kind of just been this like Markov chain soup, right? Like it's, but it means that a lot like, and it reminded me very hard of Dwarf Fortress, and I'm like, I like this idea of something that kind of takes what's happening and then and says, what if we can just generate a whole bunch of ridiculous situations and things out of it? But then on top of that, for the story that we were looking at, the one, Paul, that you posted, was the one where it's like, you can now pick not just that, like, because I guess homosexuality may have actually been a thing. I don't know if it was by accident or on purpose in CK2, but you could actually choose that as an option in CK3. You can choose to be bisexual. You can choose asexuality. You can change up the gender diversity and also change how like same-sex relations are looked at. You can change how gender equality works. So you can go from having the default system of, patriarchy to having a fully equal system to having an inverted system where it's matriarchies, and then men are sold for chattel.
Because of course, what's interesting about these procedurally generated systems is, of course, the computer doesn't care what you're doing. It's just working on, all the variables that you're feeding it, right? So if you bump up the if you make it so that so that if this variable, which is the gender of the person, and this variable, which is the age of the person, if you change how those are or if you change how it's calculated whether those people are compatible.
Yeah.
It's got some the presumably the game has some equation for whether two people are decides two people are compatible. And then, but of course, the idea that you can sort of go in there and change those knobs at least a little bit is quite interesting. I mean, there's been a couple of sort of controversy things about this kind of topic because, of course, when people are making these games, they have to make decisions about how the world will be generated and how relationships will form in the game and that kind of stuff. They have to make decisions, and what those decisions are will have, ramifications for how the games play out, right? If you make it so that people, that same people are less likely to form a couple if it's same sex, then obviously there will be less of those people in your world, or less couples anyway in your world. If you make it more likely, then there'd be more, and so you can mess around with that. And the idea that, like, I like specifically they're talking about, like, essentially they can make the whole game just like Crusaders 2, which is approximating the real world within certain parameters or historical stuff. And then they're like, but why do we have to do that?
Yeah.
Why not change a bunch of the defaults and see what happens?
Yeah. Why not change a bunch of things also to be like, hey, things might have been, like, we all understand that things might have been X way based on the history that got written. But if you look at the longer extended history, you realize that a lot of things that we've taken for, we've understood about, like, gay couples could have been a prominent, like, an actual thing that, and like, men loving men would have been a thing that was considered okay during certain periods of time in history in certain cultures. But a lot of that gets wiped out because the prevailing history is like, yes, but we don't want that to be okay, so we'll say that never happened in medieval times, and we'll tell everybody that never happened, even though we have clear evidence that it did happen. And that kind of thing where everyone's now rediscovering that, it's like, why are we building this to be this way that suits a sensibility that isn't actually maybe representative of like what the truth could have been? In fact, why don't we just open all that up and let things go where they're going to go?
In some ways, like, it's almost not even like, we're finding new research now that means that maybe this could have been the way it is. But and it's like, who cares? Like, we don't have to justify it.
Right.
Like, it's a fantasy thing, right? Like,
it's alternate universes, right?
You can, and I think it's important that you can play it as a historical thing as far as you can, because I think some people enjoy that aspect of it as too. But the idea that you can just be like, I want to make it, I want to make it so that there are no kings, only queens, or that I feel like
I want to shuffle religions so it's all different religions from different parts of the world where you wouldn't have expected them from.
Yeah, maybe if a whole bunch of religions didn't choose the same place to have as their holy city, a lot of stuff would have changed.
Right? Go ahead.
Although I do feel like if you push up, like, there's a few things, like, if you push up your asexuality too high, I feel like that's going to cause problems.
Yeah, in terms of succession, right? It might be like, that's harder.
Like, if nobody's into it, then that's going to be kind of a short game.
Though on the other hand, there's a lot of events where it's like seduction in the wild, like this kind of thing where someone's trying to seduce you to get you to come over to them, to give them an heir, so there can be like, power struggles for the throne. It's like, but if you're not interested, if that's not a main driver of your life, if you're not horny all the time, I don't know much about asexuality, so I'm probably going to fuck this up and I apologize. But if you weren't driven by lust for someone from wherever because you're not feeling that same kind of pull, then maybe actually you end up having a more responsible family and a more responsible kind of, I don't know, which I think is interesting. The story I love that because I went to Rock Paper Shotgun and I saw a whole list of different Spy Master related stories, and one that I didn't include because I found it hard to try to describe is that one player could just just did without a spy master altogether, because it turned out that their cat had such a high like diplomacy observation score that the cat was acting as the de facto spy master and could see what other people were doing, and that generated enough information for the ruler that they were like, I don't need a spy master to go around and figure stuff out. I just let my cat do it.
I mean,
So,
I mean, are all cats secretly spy masters? The trick is getting the cat to tell you the stuff it knows.
yeah, right?
Like, cats are good at spying on people, but they usually just kind of keep it to themselves.
So, yeah, I like a lot of great stuff, and I feel like there's a lot of like when I went to go look at memes, I was like, well, there's a lot of memes with some really shitty opinions in here, but there's also a lot of pictures of stuff. It's like that are just like, wow, look at what the game generated. And that's kind of how I feel about Dwarf Fortress as well. Is it's like Dwarf Fortress is very interesting, but when you look at a Let's Play for Dwarf Fortress, it's very clear that game makes amazing stories and makes just great lore just from a purely randomized basis.
Well, Dwarf Fortress not only makes, like, they added a thing a while ago. I saw a story about this, that they in Dwarf Fortress not only does the playing the game create lore and stuff, but before you even start the game, it generates.
It has to. Yeah.
It generates like hundreds of years of like full on lore and succession and how these different people worked and all this stuff. Like
how somebody lost an arm, like
yeah, like it takes and like it generates like hundreds of years of this stuff that you can read it all. It's crazy.
Yeah. Next story, I think. Then.
Yes, let's keep moving here. Marvel's Avengers. There's not that much story to it that other than it's got lots and lots of microtransactions. I hope you like your Avengers wearing goofy outfits. So
yeah, that was.
The problem with this is that because they're existing characters, and like, I feel like the problem with this is it's going to really emphasize the thing that in the not the real world, but in the comic world, there are lots of actual characters that are basically just palette swaps.
Yeah.
Like
Iron Man and War Machine.
Yeah, like is there just going to be a War Machine outfit for Iron Man? Like they wear but it's supposed to be a different guy.
Yeah.
Or like is it always going to be outfits, or is it also going to be like faces, right? What about like the like various different iterations of Thor? What about Beta Ray Bill?
Sorry.
Is he just a Thor skin?
I haven't heard of Beta Ray Bill. I'm sorry.
He's awesome. Alien Thor.
Okay. That's awesome.
He's an alien that ended up with Thor's hammer for a little while. And then when Thor got his hammer back, Odin was like, "You know what? You're so awesome. I'm going to make you your own hammer.
Aww.
You can have your own hammer." He's actually in. There's a statue of him in the third Thor movie, in like as like one of the other champions.
Wow!
In the
in Ragnarok,
in the fighting area.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's good. That's good. I like it. It's not new, but it's buy a game for full price and then continue to spend an awful lot of money, Canadian or otherwise, to trick it out the way you want it to look. And it just doesn't, it never makes me feel okay. I look at it like, I don't like this new trend, but whatever.
They've definitely like the free, it used, the like, once we got used to the free to play with microtransactions, model,
Yeah.
right? As
Yeah.
a culture, as a group of gamers. I now they're like, okay, people were okay with the free to play with microtransactions. What about you pay to play, but also there are still microtransactions? Let's see how that
Yeah.
goes.
Yeah. I mean, it's you can kind of frame this a bit, I guess, as like continuous micro DLC, right? That it's like you don't have to buy these things to play the game, clearly,
I
but
mean,
it is purely
they're
cosmetic, but still.
yeah, they're cosmetic. So it's not like it's not like you're getting extra powers, and it's not like you're getting actual content. So
Yeah.
that's good, I guess, in the sense of from a microtransaction point of view. Also, since as we said, there's also the like sponsored skins. Like you can have your whole superhero team sponsored by Verizon or Intel,
Yeah.
which seems like something more from like was it The Boys rather than Avengers, like where all the superheroes are like owned by a corporation.
I
Then
wanted to
again,
write a lower. Sorry.
I was just gonna say that again. I'd be surprised if Tony Stark isn't in talks with somebody about. I mean, obviously there's merchandising because
Yeah.
within the Avengers universe, within the MCU, there's like toys of the Avengers, but they
Yeah.
haven't actually shown any of them like wearing logos yet.
Yeah. Something like from Galoob or Kenner. I have to assume that in the Avengers universe, Galoob and Kenner are still toy manufacturers. I wanted to make a reference to Tiger and Bunny in the lower thirds, and realized that if I was to do that, that a very a vanishingly small part of our audience would have no idea what, or would know what it is, and everybody else would have no clue. Tiger and Bunny is a Japanese anime, probably a manga. I don't know, but it's an anime that is about superheroes that compete to have the highest standings of crime stopping, and they have all over their costumes. They have all sorts of different real life people, like real life companies backing them. Like one of them is backed by Amazon.co.jp. One of them is backed by a beef bowl restaurant. Like, and I'm like, how much did you pay? Holy shit, to be a part of this show, so your logo was constantly for Blue Rose. She's sponsored by Pepsi Nex, not Pepsi, but the Pepsi Nex flavor. It was quite a thing.
It's kind of brilliant to make a show where the sponsorship of the show is actually like part of the premise.
Yeah, and then you run commercials during the show, on the ad breaks, you run commercials that feature the characters advertising the thing, and it's
Right.
of course you do. It makes it feel like it's the same thing all the way. God damn, it's ingenious.
It's just
It was a
basically
good
like
show
the
too.
old like Transformers / He-Man shows that were just like designed to sell the.
Yeah, but now you're just buying pop. Let's talk about Fall Guys.
Yeah, it turned out that the image that we showed was like a prototype or something that people put out. It turns
Yeah.
out that apparently they're going to get 4 skins, like they each get their own skin,
Yes.
which doesn't seem very fair to me.
No. It kind of
Like-
begs the question, hang on, they were competing over one skin, and if 4 people got together and said, well, we all put our money together, so here, and now we win, it's like, well, I guess we'll make each of you a skin. I'm like, then why wouldn't Tushy say, wait, we'll give you the money as well, and then you're just selling spots for skins. It's not an auction anymore.
Yeah, and they only paid $250,000 each for their skins, whereas Tushy was going to pay $420,000
$20,069.
Yeah. As somebody who doesn't play Fall Guy, and so has absolutely no vested interest in this, I feel like we were robbed of a Tushy skin.
Agreed. I hope that, because I was so disappointed when I saw the ninja skin, because I just thought to myself, I'm like, you are I understand that you have to have stuff to sell to your 10-year-old fans that looks super cool. That you can't give them something that's goofy. But I hate that that's that's the end result of this. Is it's like you have to like that shit looks crazy focus grouped. It looks like really like, hey, we came up with this cool idea. Isn't it awesome? You're gonna dress up like this. I'm like, you need to make it silly. Like it. The game itself is silly. Make the costume silly.
Well, they combined like all the proposed skins for the four people who were putting the money in, right? So like the dots all over the body is from 2G or is from AIM Labs. Like the hair was from Ninja. There's like a bunch of yeah. It could have been, I don't know. When we were doing the Fall Guys stream on Wednesday, I think the skins that I was most impressed with were the ones that were like, there's a guy who had like a fish tank in his torso. Yeah. That was
with like a fish swimming around.
Yeah, it was like transparent.
Oh my god!
Like that's cool.
So good. Yes. Maybe it takes a bit of resources, or you have to redesign shit, but still, that's really cool. All right.
Anyway, and then lots of Nintendo stuff, which the biggest surprise about this story is that Graham wrote this story, not me.
Yeah, that's mostly because Graham was awake and I was not.
Yeah, Nintendo has a bad habit of doing their Nintendo Directs at like 6 a.m. on the day.
I think this shoot. This one was even at 9, so there's even like less time or whatever. But yeah, it's the 35th anniversary of Super Mario Brothers, Super Mario or of Mario.
We did a story about the 35th anniversary of Mario and all the silly things that were coming out, but apparently that was just the prelude to the real anniversary.
Because now you're getting sneakers from Puma, and I'm like, oh, this is it's a slow drip of content for the entire year until March 2021, which it sounds like when everything is being like pulled back. So you'll only have all the anniversary stuff, to purchase, including the games, until March 2021. And I mean, I love the joke about like, after March 2021, everything is going back in the Disney Vault. And I know people coming, it's like, why would Nintendo have a Disney Vault? And I'm like, oh, honey, every company has a Disney Vault. You don't call it the Vault, you call it the Disney Vault, because you know how shitty it is that you're doing this to people.
I like the arbitrary taking away of things is coined as the Disney Vault.
And I love that Disney has a Disney Vault, but Disney also has Disney Plus, and all that shit that used to be in the Disney Vault, except for Song of the South, is making its way into Disney Plus. And Disney's kind of like, we have all this stuff. It's just sitting there not doing anything for us anyway. Let's just put it on Disney Plus.
Song of the South I don't think that's in the Disney Vault. That's in a different vault.
Yeah.
And
Walt's Frozen Head,
and then thrown into a very deep well.
We still don't have Disney's Fillmore on Disney Plus, and I don't understand why, because they're doing nothing with the property, and I would love to watch that again. But anyway, the only thing from the Mario presentation that I was like, I have to have that, and I hate that I have to have this, but man, I have to have it. See, but the only thing that really got me to go, oh Jesus, I think I need to buy that, was the Super Mario Brothers Game & Watch, because there's so many things it twigs in my brain where it's like, hey, remember being like 9 years old, like prior to the release of the Nintendo Game Boy, because I lived prior to the release of the Nintendo Game Boy, ladies and gentlemen, and being on a bus to go to like Fort Walsh, Alberta. Look that shit up. And it's like, it's a 3-hour ride or whatever. And you have friends who like pull out, like one friend who pulls out a Game & Watch with like, that's Donkey Kong. And you're like, what the hell is that? Like, what is this thing? And it's like a portable gaming thing that's made by Nintendo that you can play. And it's not just like frickin' like cars where you like dodge a thing. It's like, it's Donkey Kong. You get to jump over things, but it's still all an LCD. Like that kind of thing in my brain. And it was like, oh my God. And so to see the Super Mario Brothers Game & Watch in the old style with everything like perfect. The typefaces are perfect and everything. I'm like, oh god, I want that.
Is it actually done with like LED stuff?
I think it is. It's all done with like a beautiful LED screen, so you play proper Super Mario Brothers on it. Plus, also the Lost Levels, Mario 2 in Japan.
Oh, okay. Well, it must actually be just like LCD.
Yeah, it's just an
Like
LCD screen.
Okay, so it's not like an actual Game and Watch.
No, well, but it is in effect because it also has a digital clock built into it, which is what the Game & Watch was. It was basically you can play a game, but also tracks the time. This is the same thing, and I'm just like, but it's not a Game & Watch. It's not the little LCD like pre-drawn sequences that light up.
That's a very important. So there's a, I forget what the URL is, but there's a URL like the Internet Archive, I think, had a thing where you could go and download and play a bunch of the old Game & Watch things, which I think is very important because then you realize how terrible they are. It's not a good way to play a game.
No!
It was only a good way to play a game before we knew what a Game Boy was.
Right.
They are very, very bad.
But
they are not fun for more than like 2 seconds.
Yeah. You know, when you have been exposed to way better gaming, like way better portable gaming, but for the time, that was magic. And then when the Game Boy came out, it was like, that was magic. You wanted to play that kind of thing. But this Super Mario Brothers thing just lights, and we didn't talk about it in the story, but it's like, it triggers so many nostalgia things in my brain, and it's like, you want one of these, and I'm like, if it costs more than $50, no, I don't. But it's like, also, what would I use it for? Because I don't know if I would. I'd probably buy it. I'd be like too afraid to take it out of the packaging to even play it. And it would go into a storage container to be like, and now I have the thing, and I put it into my Dragon's Hoard, and I sit on it so that nobody else can have it, because now I have it, and nobody else can have it. It was like, it's such a terrible goddamn impulse that I have to buy this thing. I hate that. And I'm going to have to overcome that like I overcame the classic NES and the classic Super Nintendo. That it's like, I don't own either of those either, because I was just like, I want them because I want them, but not because I'm going to use them, so I should just ignore them. I'll put them in my Disney Vault. You're right. They go in my Disney Vault, everybody. So I don't know.
Like,
it's only going to appreciate in value. But
like, isn't it just a GBA that can only play one game?
Two games. Yes.
Like, I'm just looking. I hadn't actually seen. I thought in my mind the form factor was like a watch.
No.
The fact that it's just like a thing that it's just a GBA that sucks.
Yeah. It technically has 3 games. It has a version of Ball on it that looks like the old LCD games, but it has Mario's head, and it's like, so it's 2.5 games, 2 1/10 of a game. But yeah, it is basically just it is a hard-coded Game Boy Advance, and I don't know, I still want one, and it's people are saying it looks like they're about 5,000 yen. I hadn't even seen the pre-order stuff come, so I have no idea how much they're going for in Canada. They're probably going to be like $80 here, but anyway, lots of other Mario stuff to buy too.
Yeah, the Mario Battle Royale 35 thing looks pretty neat, I gotta say. That does seem like a neat idea.
Yeah,
but it's like, why stop it in March?
Yeah,
maybe it'll just like turn into something else.
I assumed it was just like, you'll be able to play this, like you have until March to download it, because that was a thing too. The Jump Rope Challenge game on Switch was available until September. I forgot to download it, so now I don't ever get to get it. But Heather has a copy on her Switch, so she gets to. It's like, this is like PT. This is like, you had until this certain time to get it, and at which point after that, if you didn't have it, then you won't be able to get it again. And
you missed the year of Jump Rope.
Yeah, and it's like, or the 2 months or whatever it was. I neglected to go download it, and I think this is the kind of thing too. It's going to be like, you'll be able to play Super Mario Brothers 35. Probably past that point, but you won't be able to download it after that point, which I'm like, I don't see why, but unless people like lose their minds and love it. But
Yeah, it's true. PT
Anyway.
wasn't actually supposed to be that way.
Yes.
That's what it ended up being.
Yeah. And yeah, Mario Monopoly, Mario Jenga. The Mario 3D All-Stars thing, the weirdest thing part about that, which we didn't reference, is the fact that Mario 64, Sunshine, and Galaxy are on there, but weirdly Galaxy 2 is not, and with no explanations, with no seemingly no reason provided as to why, because why would you do that in your marketing material? Say, like, oh, here's the thing that we're not giving you, and here's why. And it might be interesting to see what people who have a really good, people who have a good understanding of how the industry works, or have a good understanding how like development works, or have a good understanding of really anything and have a nuanced take on stuff. Listen to what they have to say why Galaxy 2 didn't make it on. Don't listen to just only what any rando will say, because I think there's probably good reasons why Galaxy 2 did not make it onto the 3D All-Stars collection. But I don't know what that could possibly be.
To me, to really capture the spirit of the original Mario All Stars, which wasn't neat. Like that was something that was very cool.
Yeah.
I think to me, like I'm sure it wasn't the first, but in my mind, at least I felt like that was the first like time I sort of experienced that like not re-release, but
a remaster,
remaster remake, because of course they remade the Mario 1, 2, and 3, but with all new graphics, right? With Super Nintendo level graphics. But the brilliance of it was that it was a pack-in with the Super Nintendo, right? Once it had come out, but it was the sort of later generation pack-in with the Super Nintendo. So you got all these great Mario games, which I feel like this would be a great thing for that too. But I was thinking the two things that this really needs to capture that is, one, they should have kept the Mario All-Stars branding of like Mario with like a top hat and like the magic wand. And how awesome would it have been? Because now that we know what we know, if they were like, okay, and here's Mario 64 widescreen, Luigi's in it.
Yeah.
And it's just the models. And it's just Mario. It's just a Mario palette swap. Like it's literally nothing. Like that would have been so easy to do.
Yeah.
And that would have just made people go crazy.
Yeah. I really Mario All-Stars, the original. They did a God, I remember doing this. They did a thing where if you bought a Super Nintendo and it didn't come with Mario All-Stars, they had a window in which you could send in the code to cut the UPC off of your box, and then send that in, and they would send you a copy for that plus shipping of Mario All-Stars. So I get a free Super Nintendo game just because I still have the box for my Super Nintendo. And I did that because my Super Nintendo came with Mario World. It was one of like the earlier released ones that came out, so it came with Mario World. So when Mario All-Stars came out, and I was like, oh, I can get. So I did. I sent them the UPC, and it worked. They got the UPC, and they sent me a copy of the game, and I was like, oh my god. So that shouldn't have worked because I didn't buy the game didn't buy the Super Nintendo when I was supposed to. But because I sent them the code, and because I wrote them a letter saying that, well, I own the thing, but I only got it like a month before, or got 2 weeks before, or whatever, which is a complete lie. But because I did that, they were like, oh, that's fine, we'll send it to you anyway. And I was like crossing my fingers, and when I got it, I was like, oh, this is so rad. So that
I gotta say, from Nintendo's point of view, I feel like their investment in a young Brendan Deary, endearing them to the Nintendo cause, has paid off a lot more than a copy of Mario All-Stars.
Yeah.
They've definitely they made good on that investment.
Can I tangent a little bit further? Nintendo did a thing at one time where what they did is you could buy certain games by mail order, and if you bought the games by mail order, and you bought enough of them by mail order, you could get games for free. And so it was like Super Tennis, Super Soccer, Pilot Wings. There's like about 10 games on the list, most of which I didn't want.
Like one of those like CD clubs almost.
Kind of, yeah, but it was directly through them. And so what I did is I talked to all my friends who had Super Nintendos, and I said, "Is there anything on this list you guys want? Because if we all go in together, then we can all buy things and we can save on shipping." And so we did that.
Game. Was that?
And I'll get the free game because I'm fucking organizing it, right? So that's what I did. I got everybody to buy stuff, and they were cheap too. They were like $20 or $30 because they were like the initial release games, right? So we did that, and then I claimed Pilot Wings as the free game for that. So I got to have Pilot Wings with that. And I don't know if I even bought a game. I think I just convinced everybody else to buy games. It was like buy 5 and get the one for free or whatever, which was rad because I get Pilot Wings for free. It was awesome. Which definitely is also how I started selling bootleg Taiwanese anime CDs. So, but that's a whole other story.
It's a dark time.
Not really. You should see my CD collection. I have 400 anime CDs for stuff that I've never even listened to. In fact, just because I could get them for free because I was having other people order them, and I could get free CDs for having other people order them.
Isn't that?
That's a very involved thing. What?
Isn't that how you met?
Ian? That's literally how I met Ian. Yes, we have told this story before.
It all connects.
Yeah. All right. Pokemon Master Sex was really funny.
Yeah, maybe you should check what happened. It's like you got to check your hashtags and your URLs, folks. You know, if you've got therapist in your name, be very careful with what other words you're putting in that. If you're trying to make a URL or a hashtag. All right. Other stories that we didn't talk about. Control.
You played that. I didn't.
Yeah, super good game. I played on Play It Forward. I think there's some extra DLC for it now that I wanted to look at, but the latest update for it added this big, huge accessibility thing, which is very interesting. I saw this and I find myself a little conflicted about it, to be honest, because it's not just like adds easier difficulty modes, or adds accessibility settings for say like people who colorblind or that kind of stuff, but has very finely grained difficulty stuff with like how much damage you take from things, how much ammo you get, how fast your ammo regenerates, how fast you can fly, how all sorts of settings in the thing. And I like that. And this article on Kotaku actually criticizes that there's like when you go to turn it on, like they're all of these settings are under a thing that's like
assist mode or something.
Assist mode. And this Kotaku article criticized the fact that when you turn that on, a little thing pops up being like, "Hey, try playing it the regular way first." But you can then turn this on if you want. Like, there's just like a little like, it's
I feel bad.
It doesn't stop you from doing it, but there is like a little like, hey, thing. But I think I like that. Like, it's weird. Like these kind of extremely fine-grained controls, because the thing is with Control. I'm going to use the word control a bunch of times. But anyway, with Control, like, a bunch of these things are actually gameplay things. So, having your gun's ammo regenerate faster, having you take less damage, being able to fly longer, all that stuff are upgrades you get in the game.
Right.
And so the idea that it seems strange to me the idea that it's like, well, instead of getting that upgrade in the game, I can just go to the menu and like turn that thing up.
Right.
And in some ways, like, obviously, if you want to play, you can play your game however you want. You can play a game however you want to play a game.
Mm-hmm.
There's no judgment on that. But there is a certain aspect of shared experience that if they didn't have that warning and there was just all the settings in the menu,
Right.
that you were like, you're talking to somebody else playing Control, and they'd be like, oh man, how did you do on the boss that's like a mirror image of you? Isn't that like the hardest boss? And you had like, oh man, but then I finally figured out like the way to fight her was like using all this stuff. And somebody else who may have had different accessibility settings turned on being like, no, that was a really easy, like,
Yeah, I just sat there and kept shooting until the boss was dead.
A fine boss. I didn't. That wasn't an interest. Like that wasn't a. That was a fine fight, sure, whatever. And so, like, I feel like in some ways, you're missing that kind of shared experience. That I like. I would almost prefer it if it was just like a setting for like easier mode that does like a bunch of stuff to make it so that you don't take as much damage and you stuff that smooths out the difficulty spikes in the game, which there are definitely some serious difficulty spikes. But I would always prefer if they just did that, like they just made it easier. Because then at least you would have something in common with the other people who had it on that easy setting.
Right.
But when there's so much granularity, then your experience of the game is going to be completely different. It's going to be quite different than anybody else who is using those settings.
It does,
and
though.
I don't know if I like that. I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking out loud here.
Sure. But it and that is one of those things where it's like we've talked about assist modes an awful lot on CheckPoint. I think a lot. It feels like we've talked about it multiple times because it is an emerging thing that more game developers are making, and coming from it not from an accessibility point where it's like obviously this is great for people who need these kind of things because trying to play it is too difficult for them, and if you ramp all the stuff up, it's still a difficult process of playing the game in the first place. It's like, well, surely this is a great idea. What a good idea to do this, and coming it from a point of view of like, what if I just can't get good? Like, what if I was playing Feudal Alloy the other day and I just could not make a jump, and over it's like, why I should be able to make this jump. I had to like look up walkthroughs to see like, how do you do it? I watched a video walkthrough to see, how does this guy get through this area, and he just does the jump, and I'm like, oh, and then I sat down and I picked up my controller again and I did the jump like immediately. I just watched the guy do it and I'm like, oh, it's just like this, and I just did it. And I felt like an idiot because I was like, this was a jump I could always make, but it didn't seem like I could make it. So, but the moment I knew I could make it, then I just made it. And I'm like, that's weird that I had this mental block. But those kind of things when it's like, and I hate to do this, let's start though from the controversial thing. Anybody who is able-bodied, anyone who has, the standard level of dexterity, or two people who have the same level of dexterity, if one person's having a problem with it and one person isn't having a problem with it, then you have that clash of, so how did you get past this point? And the person who is not as good as it or can't get the dexterity to do it is like, I just couldn't make it work, so I turned on assist mode and then I got past the point and I moved on. I think what that does is hopefully the more that starts to happen, it starts to encourage people to be like, oh, I see, there are people have had to go through different experiences in order to play a game. But when you are tying so much of your identity to your ability to be able to pull off a jump in a game and being like, I was able to do that jump on my own with no help, and turns out you couldn't, so I guess you suck. Or even the idea that you put in your own mind that it's like, I guess I suck because I had to turn on assist mode, whereas this guy who's making no value judgments about me was able to do it with no problem. It's like, that's where the psychological aspect of using an assist mode versus not starts to really take a heavy digs its claws into people's brains to make you think that I'm not as good at this as I should be. If I'm not good at it, is it worth doing? Like that kind of thing. But yeah, so it's not like CheckPoint, I think, as a show, will ever cast shade upon the idea of an assist mode for anybody for any reason. Because sometimes I do just want to get past a point that's giving me trouble and kind of get on with my life because I want to enjoy the rest of the game. And I love that Control lets you turn it off. But the underlying psychological aspects are something that, we have to contend with. And I think that's also part of maturing as people, as well as learning to understand. It's like sometimes I just have a block that I can't make it past, and being able to do this, I should learn to be okay with that as an adult. As a human being, I should learn to be okay with my own limitations and move on.
And I mean, part of the reason that, as somebody who primarily plays single player games, one of the main reasons that I play games is to experience this sort of, or to have this sort of curated experience of, of what the developers intended.
Yeah.
And so, generally I try to play games on whatever, usually whatever the developers say. Like usually in difficulty modes, they'll be like what the normal level is or whatever, like what the basic or the base level is.
Like play normal. Yeah.
Yeah. When I'm playing by myself anyway. That's something that, and again, no shade on people who play stuff differently, or people, especially, or people who, always want to play on the hardest mode or always play on the easy mode or whatever. But to me, that sort of experience is part of the reason why I find, games interesting. In some, like, yeah, it's sort of like it's I guess there's, the line between a accessibility option and like cheat codes for games. Again, I've played lots of games with cheat codes because it's fun to just like break stuff. But it's a different kind of experience playing the game.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know the thing that you should not do, or maybe there's some people like this, but the thing that I really don't like in games is accessibility mode suggestions. Like, you've fallen into this hole a lot. Do you want me to turn on the easy thing? And you go, no! Screw you, game! If I want the easy thing, I'll turn it on myself.
Yeah.
Just because I've fallen in this hole 30 times in a row. That was my choice.
Yeah. That's a very, like...
Yeah,
there's a very like Windows Vista kind of thing there, where it's like, hey, I'm going to ask you every time about doing a thing because I need you to give me the heads up about this. And it's like, yeah, if you inundate me with asking me to be in the assist mode too often, I'm going to start to resent you as a game.
It's like, yeah, game, you're going to keep playing this one section of the level as many times as I want to. That's your job, game.
Yeah.
I don't care if the game is bored that they have to keep doing the same thing over and over again. Anyway, that games that do that, which then some of the Mario games can be a little annoying about, like they have like the assist. Usually you can turn it off, but
yeah,
when they started putting like assist modes into the things that'll actually like scoot you through a level or something, I think one of the ones you couldn't turn it off, or you couldn't turn off the notification or the like, hey, do you want to do this?
Yeah.
Was rather patronizing. What else we got going on here? People are making money off Animal Crossing, and not just the developers of Animal Crossing.
Yeah. There was a whole Animal Crossing roundup that I had in mind to do this, but I couldn't remember all my stories, and then I just kind of fell out of interest of doing it. This story I thought was really cool. But I do want to talk about the other ones too, real fast. So go ahead.
So this story is about Animal Crossing photography, I guess you would call it, screenshots, images from Animal Crossing, which you could take on your, I guess you could take on your Switch. There's like a button to take a screenshot.
Yep.
And it's become quite a a thing. There's like Twitter accounts and Instagram accounts and all sorts of things that post just like pictures of cool Animal Crossing pictures.
Look at this beautiful setup of what my island looks like.
Yeah, relaxing pictures or fun pictures or all this stuff. But the trick is, a lot of the time it's not just Animal Crossing pictures. To add that extra little zing to it, people will actually bring the pictures like into Photoshop and, fancy them up, change the color balances and, just to give it that real vibe that they're looking for. And so not only are people making, quite successful lots of traffic with these Instagram and Twitter accounts and stuff, but people are also making money selling filters for Animal Crossing photos.
Yeah. Filters that you would use through Adobe Lightroom seems to be the most popular thing. Because Lightroom is a very inexpensive photo management app that allows you to make, like, you can have presets and you can process photos that way. If you've never used Lightroom before, it is a really handy photography tool. But it's not about photo manipulation like the same way Photoshop is. It is for this specific purpose. And I was like, oh, that's cute. And then I found out that Sleepy Luck, who's one of the people who's like kind of mid-tier priced a lot of their presets, that they sell for about $4. They've already made enough money to buy a new Switch. They are saving up more money with profits to buy a capture card, and they're also saving up to buy a PC. This is all mentioned in the story, and I was like, holy shit! Like, that's maybe only 50 people that have to buy, or 60 people, or 70 people that have to buy your presets. But still, that's 60 or 70 people that are saying, I'm going to spend $4 on this thing just so I can change the tones of these, because I don't want to have to do it myself. I'll just use it to change the tones of the pictures I'm taking. With the whole idea being, it's supposed to then give you a way to represent your island to other people in a way that's much more with, this is what the tone of my island is, because you can't change the way that it looks. You can set to like vivid or sepia or whatever when you're taking photos on your own in Animal Crossing, because there's a whole camera screenshot thing with that. You can play with it and zoom in and stuff. But it's crazy. It's like people are making money on the back of this, and I was like, that's really cool. But it's weird to think that that's an emerging tiny cottage industry.
Of course, it's the old, the whatever, dating or any kind of the thing, right? You're like, oh wow, look at how wonderful this person's island is, and then you go to the island, and you're like, oh,
not quite the same.
It's not as cool as I thought it would. It was only cool from that. They just were taking it from that one angle.
Yes.
Look, everybody, if people are taking the picture of their island from like an upwards, really close angle, be suspicious.
Yeah. So there were some other Animal Crossing things as well. One that I thought was timely is that the Joe Biden Kamala Harris campaign has released lawn signs for Animal Crossing. So basically custom designs that you can capture, and then you can stand those out on your island to say, hey, look, I support this, and I support these candidates. And I'm like, it's so weird to me that exists as a thing, because Animal Crossing is a very singular game. It has its multiplayer elements, but it's not a thing that lets you mass track people through something.
Right, but nobody will see these signs unless you're explicitly inviting them to your island.
Yeah. Or unless you're taking photos and they happen to be in the background and you're putting the photos up, and then people can see, oh, I see you have a political affiliation. and which I thought was, I'm like, I think it's cute that their social media interns or whomever made these things, and there's maybe somebody is making a Joe Biden island for a Joe Biden me to run around in and kind of welcome people or whatever. And maybe that will be a thing that they'll do as a fun little goof. And I think that's the idea. Is it's all about making like the any way you can to kind of draw in people to be interested in your campaign. And I'm like, and now it is Animal Crossing is involved in a way of drawing in people into the campaign. I'm like, all right, well, that's politics.
What I object to about the signs is that they're the resolution of a sign in Animal Crossing is not very large.
No.
They're like all pixelated, right? But
Yeah.
they're very excessively dithered, the sign. I feel like if you're making pixel signs for your campaign that are going to go into Animal Crossing, they should, like, it looks like they just scaled the actual art for the sign down to the size for Animal Crossing. They didn't actually redraw it, which I feel like they could have done a little more effort on that.
Does he get 32 by 32? There's not much you can do, but yeah.
I don't like the look of dithered stuff. It doesn't look like, I don't like the look of it. That's just me.
And of course, the new Animal Crossing fall season has begun. So therefore, with the new update, there's new fish and insects and sea creatures to catch. And now when you shake trees, they might give you acorns and pine cones, which has barely been happening for me.
Do all the trees change color too?
Yes, they are slowly changing. They will get more brown. I think later in the month or something like that. They don't slowly change over time, which would be nice. But they'll probably just all of a sudden you'll log in one day and all of a sudden, boom, everything's brown or fall colors or whatever. Except the cedar trees. The cedar trees will always stay green. The evergreens stay green. So
maybe
if you shake your
a raking leaves mini game.
If you shake your cedar trees, they give you pine cones. Process that, Paul. When you shake your cedar trees, you get pine cones. If you shake your apple trees, you'll get acorns. So it's the game is not real. It's just doing what it wants.
The simulation of Animal Crossing is breaking down.
Yeah.
What else we got going on here?
The big Yeetus and Fall Guys is they showed off a giant hammer.
Speaking of fall, there's one of the things that they've teased for season 2 of Fall Guys. They're gonna, obviously new games and stuff, including what they're calling Yeetus, as in a hammer that yeets you extremely far. Because it's like the hammers that are already there, but instead of spinning around, it spins this way. So if you're standing here, it goes boosh
and fires you across the map. Yeah,
fires you across the map. Which, to be fair, happens already with things that are spinning on the map. So this promises to cause all sorts of fun mayhem.
It is intended, I think, to be a catch-up mechanic. So if you are playing this against people who are professional Fall Guys players, because that is now becoming a thing, it seems, people who have spent thousands of hours playing Fall Guys already, the idea, I think, is to help level the playing field. The hammer will magically appear at times. It doesn't sound like it's it doesn't sound like it's just a thing that is there. It sounds like it's a thing that's like, if you're far behind, the hammer might just appear on a level, and then you can get in front of it and let it push you across the map if you want to. So you can stay in the game, I think, is the idea. It doesn't seem like it's supposed to be permanent at least from the representation they give it. I'm kind of like, that hammer doesn't look like it belongs there. And I'm like, it seems to be a thing that just pops into existence at some point. So,
Counter-Strike coach, a couple of Counter-Strike coaches got in deep trouble. You saw the video for this, Peach.
I saw both the videos for this. I saw the video that shows off here's how the bug works, because it's a spectator mode style bug for Counter-Strike. that you normally can't use, especially if you're a coach. You wouldn't be able to just set yourself at your opponent's spawn point and basically watch them do whatever. But that's what the bug is. But I saw the second video, which is where, what do they call them? Proctors, adjudicators, somebody who's a referee is standing and looking at what's going on, and all of a sudden one of the coaches enacts the bug and to use the spectator mode to see where their opponents. This is at a match. This is at like a tournament.
The idea that this is that they didn't just figure out that people were doing it like when they were playing remotely, but apparently this was actually in like a tournament in person.
Yeah. Oh God. And when he gets caught, it's amazing because the thing is, the coach moves to delete the bug, like to basically turn it off or kill the hacker, whatever the hell he's trying to do to basically make it stop from happening. And you see his hand just fly to the keyboard, and you see the referee's hand just fly to the other dude's hand and pull his arm back. And it's all very like, you don't know that because it's the shot of it. Go watch it. If you see, this is on Kotaku. It's Counter-Strike coach is banned for up to 2 years for abusing spectator bug. And it's just amazing to see like the kind of blasé, like my hand moves here, my hand has been pulled back, and they all just kind of sit there and they're all staring at the screen. And it's like, I know it's happened, and I know something bad is about to happen because of it, and I can't do anything, so just I've been caught. My hand's in the cookie jar. And it's kind of amazing to see that on people's faces. But yeah, now they don't get to compete for 2 years, I think. The coaches don't.
I mean, does it? I assume their team got disqualified and stuff too. Eh?
I think I know that for sure that one of the coaches, in fact, from being banned, has now also been released by their esports company. That they're like, you're fired. Like,
I mean, a coach who can't do anything for 2 years, I guess, is not a very useful proposition.
Yeah.
But yeah, doing it like how, I don't know, it just seems like there's so many cameras and so many people around, like, to do it actually like during a live match. Ugh.
Yeah. 3 different coaches from 3 different teams. Banned for 6 months, 12 months, and 24 months, respectively. If you read the thing, it's kind of like, oh, Jesus. Like, yeah, I'm just reading the story again, so I just want to see. Oh, right, because the tournaments were also for points. So they were retroactively disqualified. All 3 teams were retroactively disqualified and forced to forfeit their prize money, obviously. And they forfeit their Pro Tour points, because that's how you qualify for all of the biggest events. And so if you forfeit your points, you're obviously going to find it harder to make it to the events. So, yeah.
I mean, yeah, like, it seems like a pretty cut and dry cheat. Like,
yeah, and other CSGO tournaments have also begun scrubbing through their demos to uncover similar abuses, but they haven't found any abuses so far. So it's kind of this thing where clearly, like, there's going to be knock-on effects because this hack has been around for a while.
It reminds me of, videos you see sometimes where, like, a streamer will be doing something and then, like, Alt-Tab, and people see, like, on their taskbar or in their things that, like, they have what is clearly a cheating program running.
Yeah.
And
it's like, oh, your aimbot.
They realize, and then they switch back, but it's a stream, so people actually just have a clip recording of it.
Yeah.
Oops, whoops. And they're like, oh, weird. I don't know what that was. I'm not going to go now. Bye. Oh, log off.
And
go ahead.
I guess our last story is Vlambeer.
Yeah. And this is, we said we don't talk about, we don't usually talk about studios closing, just because it's kind of a downer. This is kind of an interesting thing where, so Vlambeer is closing down. But not because they're
in trouble.
Because they're in trouble. They've just now, to be fair, if you look at their output, they haven't actually put a game out in a couple of years. So clearly, this is something that was a long time coming. But they were just like, you know what? We are both interested in doing other things now. So we're just going to shut down the studio. We're not going to sell. I don't even know. It'd be interesting. Like I don't know where the IP is going to be going.
Yeah. Because they did talk about the idea of Vlambeer is currently still making a game called Ultra Bugs, and so the idea is like it sounds like they're still making it. They're still going to put it out. At which point it's like that'll be the end of the studio. Like they've pre-announced that when Ultra Bugs comes out, that's you guys please download it, play it. That's the last thing we're gonna make.
Don't expect a lot of DLC for Ultra Bugs.
Yeah. But they also said that they want to talk to other groups to find out how if there are ways to be like, well, if there's still people playing Nuclear Throne, which I imagine there still are, is there a publisher out there? Is there another group out there that's willing to be like, we will ensure that any sort of like technical support or future patching or those kind of things, we're happy to take that on as something ourselves. And I'm like, if you do that, if you find somebody who's willing to do that, it means that they see the money in it too, because that's all stuff that requires money to look at to result in this. So it may end up that Vlambeer might sell some of this property to other companies so that they can continue to sell the games and make money to order to support like long-term play of these games. But yeah, Vlambeer's just like, we decided that we're done doing this and we're not going to give up the gaming industry, but we're just going to not have this little studio. We were going to kind of just do our own independent things for a while. And, you know how that goes sometimes is like the band breaks up and then 15, 20 years, the band gets back together and they, release a reunion album and who knows, right? Like
what's going to happen is then we're going to have two Vlambeers. Each guy is going to start their company back up again, but with different other people.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the worst.
Yeah. So it's interesting to hear that pre-announcing a studio closing down.
Yeah, I mean, that's a hell of a lot better than some of the other things of, the place just being closed and locked when people come to work on Thursday or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear Nuclear Throne is super good. I think I have it from like the Epic store. I should check it, but anyway, I think that is all the news that we had for this week. At least all the news
I think so.
That was sufficiently amusing to talk about, or interesting to talk about anyway. So yeah, thanks everybody for joining us. And coming up, we have shows. Especially tonight, we've got Friday Night Paper Fight, which will be not paper, but it will be on Arena. The crew is going to be doing a Amonkhet remastered draft, so that'll be fun. And then on Saturday, I probably have to refresh this. Because, yes, I thought that was the case. Because there's Valorant on Saturday afternoon. James and an assortment of his friends are going to be playing more Valorant with Team Valorant. I believe the studio, I believe the draft is not going to be a rotisserie draft, but I think the plan is to like have it as a draft. They're all going to draft separately and then build their decks or something like that.
Oh, interesting.
I'm not entirely sure what the circumstances are, but I believe they're not going to be doing the full like rotisserie draft.
They will explain it to you, though, I'm sure, how it's going to work.
And then, so we've got Valorant. And then we've got Tinker Tailor Solder Fry messing with the Naomi because on Thursday there was the Twitch awards thing that Graham was doing on Thursday. So we had to move Tinker Tailor Solder Fry to Saturday So Ian is going to be continuing with his work on the Naomi, getting it wired up and net booting with a Raspberry Pi. So I figure the Naomi is definitely at some point it's going to also have like the Dreamcast that Ian's been working on, like integrated into it, and
Yeah.
it's just going to be like it's just going to like have tentacles that come out and grab different pieces of electronics.
It's just
and
kind of
integrate
slowly
it
pulled
into
them
the-
in.
And then on Sunday we've got Rhythm Cafe Beat Blast, which is a very that's like a very like I have no idea what the game is, but it's a very like quintessential rhythm game name, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Beat
It doesn't give me
Blast.
any sense of what's going on in it.
And then on Monday we have episode 5 of Best of Intentions. This will be back to live. Last week it was a pre-recorded episode because of various
Reasons.
scheduling reasons, but we're going to be back live, so we get to have Dale and Andy and Jacob and Corey continuing on with their adventure with wild locomotive that they are trying to befriend. This is
Cool.
yeah, freaky magic area. So they're like, we need it's like we need a train. Okay, well, there's a sentient locomotive that's been seen driving around. Maybe you can convince it to talk to you. So yeah, check out last episode up on Loading Ray or YouTube.com/LoadingRayRun to find out how that went. Also, with some of the most amazing voice work by Andy and Dale as Andy's character, who is a half orc who speaks Goblin. Andy goes and talks to another Goblin and establishes what goblins sound like when they talk to each other, as opposed to when they, when they talk to them
In common or
talk
whatever.
common. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds cool.
That whole sequence was amazing. I highly recommend you check it out. And then on Tuesday, we're back to a regular schedule with Mine O'Clock. James, Uno, and Serge are playing Minecraft. Talking Simulator with Cameron and Corey. And Dead Space 3 on Teletsnope. So, all sorts of cool stuff coming up. Make sure you check out loadingrayrun.com/live. That's got the schedule and it's got a link to the calendar and all that good stuff. Now we should thank all the awesome people who subscribed during the stream.
Nice.
Starting with this person, Banderbear91 for 32 months. Thank you very much.
Oh, sorry. Tears Red Right Hand returns for 28 months. Welcome back.
Texan Reverend for 50 months. Thank you very much.
Nice to see you again. Wild Peaks got this gift from an anonymous gifter. Welcome and thank you.
Who I think may have been Ferrobender, who by mistake hit the thing saying they were anonymous. Kushinoki, gifted by Ferrobender27. Thank you very much.
Rebecca WSD got this gift from Ferrobender as well.
Yes. Anonymously gifted by Ferrobender. Whoops. Let's just say Mr. P. Bender gifted this. Ash16180, also gifted by Ferrobender.
3 4/5 has been here a full year. Welcome. Congrats on your anniversary.
I kind of want that to be like 3 and I fifths, like to have the numbers formatted in a different way
Oh,
each
like
time.
the 4
Or
should be
or
the
no, or 3 and IV fifths.
I like, so on fancy watches, 4 is generally represented by 4 eyes and not an IV, because when you're counting up, it's sometimes hard to be like representing 4 as an IV because you have to do the subtraction step. So instead you go 1, 2, 3, and then you add the 4th eye because you're counting up at the same time. It's a very odd alternative. It doesn't get used that often, but it's always on like really fancy watches that use Roman numerals for some reason.
I believe this is yours, Bish.
Then, yes, 4 Skin Bandit has got this gift from 3 and 4 fifths. We were just talking about you, 4 fifths.
The Hugs Brosen for 25 months. It's the most caring of the fundamental particles.
Alien Observer has been here 16 months. That's a square. Welcome back.
The Exploded Gamer for 27 months.
Lying in Bedmon has been here for 33 months, a multiple of 11.
Timer Quack for 38 months.
Whicker Guide has been here for 36 months. That's 3 years. Welcome back.
Nice. And thank you for the 51 bits from Earthen One.
Yay.
Yay.
As a heads up, we also have stuff at PAX Online, and that's not happening until September the 12th is when PAX Online begins. But we should let you know that we do have Q&A panels, which you have already submitted your questions for. We've already recorded these, so those are done. There is a Desert Bus Q&A panel, I believe, that they either have recorded. I wasn't on it, so I know that there is one that is going to be there. The Panelists is doing a live to tape, we've already recorded it, show at PAX Online. And
get to see what Panelists is like when we don't edit it.
Right, exactly. Which we have done live shows at PAXs before, so this is kind of the same thing, but it is also in the format of us recording stuff for here, so that's fun. And then there's also, this was great. I'm so excited they picked this because I think it's going to be really interesting. The Minecraft Punch-a-Chunk Challenge Express. Live from PAX Online. They're not doing that many live shows, but live you will be able to join the chat on whatever channel they're on, and I believe the idea is you can still give Twitch bits as part of the Boons and Banes things, Paul. Is that still in the process?
I'm not sure if it'll actually be bits, but yeah, it's going to be James and Serge and 2 guests. They're going to be 2 teams competing against each other to punch the most chunk that they can in 2 hours. And yes, there will be a donation system that will be going to Child's Play, and we're not totally locked in how it actually be happening. But as the donations at certain donation levels will invoke various advantages or disadvantages for the teams to make their jobs easier or harder. So that'll be super fun. We're just working out all the details as I speak. So it's not. It is obviously not going to be 6 hours long like a normal Punch and Chunk would be. Yes. They're going to see how far they can get. There's also there'll be teams of 2, so there's double the punching.
Yeah.
So maybe that will allow them to get further. But I don't know. I have to say, whoever is on James's team seems like they've got a pretty big advantage. I mean, James has been training pretty hard.
Yes.
In the off season, I guess.
But James,
I don't know what
James is also very notorious for falling from high places and killing himself. So
that's true. That's true. Those 2 things might balance each other out.
Yes. It'll be very interesting. We'll see how it turns out. I think it'll be a lot of fun and raise some good money for Child's Play.
Yeah. So all that Is that up on the PAX Online site? Has the calendar for
Yes,
their,
I believe
when all
it
those things are?
has, and I know that 2 of the 3 loading ready run panels are on the schedule. The intention was to do a North America and Aussie edition, and one for the Euro crowd. And I think our Euro one is the one that's not on the schedule. I am following up to find out if that's a scheduling error or if it just means that we have to not have it. But regardless of any of that,
We
all of
recorded it.
these all of these things have been recorded, and they will end up on the Loading Ready Run channel, so you will get a chance to see them if you miss them on the PAX thing. But go watch them live, because the more numbers we have in there, that's kind of cool too, because it lets them know that, oh, people love Loading Ready Run and they want to see all of the things. Don't feel like you have to go watch all of them. They're all going to be at different times of the day and night, so that everybody gets to watch it during a time that's appropriate for their time zone. That's why we did 3.
Yeah, yeah, and it's fun to watch it live with everybody else too.
Yeah.
So yeah, cool stuff coming up. And also, speaking of stuff coming up, the Zendikar
Rise?
no, nope, Zendikar already rose.
Oh, shit.
Zend
Well, we should do something about that.
Zendikar, go back to sleep.
Yeah.
Is it rising? No.
Maybe it is. Zendikar Rising,
it is
people
rising.
are saying. Okay,
I'm
cool.
sorry. I'm sorry.
Don't argue with the Super Judge, Paul.
I know. I shouldn't have. It was the Eldrazi. The Rise of the Eldrazi was the previous Zendikar set. Anyway, Zendikar Rising pre-release is going to be happening on the 13th or the 14th. The 14th. Yes, on the Monday the 14th. A little bit of a weird time.
In the middle of PAX Online.
In the middle of PAX Online. In fact, the day before the Punch-a-Chunk thing, which is fun for me. But that should be a super sweet show. So check that out as well. So lots of cool stuff coming up. Keep an eye on the schedule. But for now, we will talk to all y'all later.
Bye. Go hit up the Patreon.